really excited to tell you about some of our cash flow analytics features that you may not know about. So, I'm going to talk to you about transaction tags. I'm going to tell you why they're important and what you can do with them. And I'm going to also talk about revenue formula calculations. So, maybe what I will do now is I will take over and I will share my screen. So, what we're looking at here is just when you upload a book and you go ahead and you upload your documents. This is the final product, if you will, in dashboard form of all of our transactions in a bank statement, parsed, categorized, labeled, etc. I'm going to use this as a visual to show you what tags are. And, please jump in, ask questions, type in the chat. Craig will help make sure that they make their way towards me. But one thing I want to talk to you about today is these things called tags. So a tag it's really important. It's kind of the most atomic unit that underlies all of our cash flow analytics. And what it is it's essentially a label for transaction, and it's designed to be useful for credit decisioning and underwriting decisions. So if we have a bank statement, you'll notice that we correctly capture every single transaction on the page. We show it as a debit or credit. We tell you if it's part of revenue, and we apply what we call these tags. And what we mean by tags is that's that label. And we have what's called Ocrolus system tags. So if we go into our little tag management drop down here, I'll explain that in a second. You can see what I mean by system tags. These are our Ocrolus out of the box labels for bank statement transactions. There's about 50 of them. And we're constantly updating them all the time. But essentially, what we've done is we've said, okay, we've looked at, tens of millions of loan applications over the past decade. We've processed well over 300 million plus pages of bank statements. And through that analysis, we've developed this incredible data mode that allows us to essentially really accurately categorize transactions with these labels or system tags. So, what goes on under the hood with these tags is there are thousands and thousands of terms or strings of characters that we see on bank statement transactions that feed into these labels so that we know that a particular transaction belongs to a credit card, or it's part of a federal tax, or that it's affiliated with a crypto transaction. So we're constantly updating those lists. There's a lot of research. We're actually using large language models to review all of the things that go into these lists and constantly keep them updated. But that's how we come up with these labels. We didn't just make them up there, from years of reviewing data. And so let me just go back really quickly and talk about how they apply to transactions. So, as I mentioned here, anytime you want to see the tags that we have available, if you're in your dashboard, you can go into this little tag management drop down. It's only actually available to users with manager level permissions, and that's because they have a big impact on the transactions in your bank statement and how we calculate revenue. So we limit usage to just manager permissions, but you can always change the manager permissions on your side. I always say I don't choose who's a manager. You get to do that as the client. So you can add as many folks to manager permissions as you want. But let's go back and just show you how we have labeled all these transactions. So as you can see, we will pick out a transaction and we'll say, okay, this transaction, if we look right here, this is Bank of America, it's ATM in the description, and you can see we've understood that it is actually, in fact, associated with an ATM. It's deposit, it's an outside source. It's got all of these labels, and these tags or labels are cumulative. You can have multiple labels applied to a transaction. So that's kind of how they show up visually in the dashboard, but this also applies over API. So now let me just show you really quickly how you can create your own. So this is what we were just looking at a second ago. As I mentioned, you've got all these out of the box Ocrolus tags, and you can do a couple things with them. Now, you can always say, I like this MCA tag. This is intended to label any transaction that's affiliated with a merchant cash advance company. And you might say, I like this tag. I like what it does for me, but I noticed that there was a transaction that didn't get picked up under this tag. And that will happen sometimes because there's millions and millions and millions of transactions. And even though we're constantly updating the inputs into these tags, it's always possible. And there's an edge case that we might miss one, and we use your feedback actually to update our tags. So let's say you go into this system tag and you're like, I love the merchant cash advance tag. And I noticed we did not, Ocrolus did not pick up an MCA that I saw on my bank statements. You can actually all go in here and self-serve and edit the tag yourself. And that's actually really unique to us. We give you that full power to do that. So you can say, hey, I didn't see Nike MCA. Every time you see a Nike MCA now going forward, Ocrolus, can you please make sure you pick that up in the system tag? And we'll say, yep, no problem. Go ahead and do that. So that's one way you can edit our out of the box tags. You can also create your own. So maybe you like all of our tags, but I would expect, you would probably want to make some of your own. So we've got this one here. Someone created, I think Craig created this for me. Maybe you really care about shipping, or you really want to see transactions associated with shipping. Maybe that's really specific to the merchant or the borrower that you're looking at. You can go in and create a shipping tag, and it looks like we've got specific terms that we want to include, like UPS, FedEx, US Postal Service. And even here, I've done that myself. I'm going to actually show you how this works. So you can go in, create a custom tag, actually, by going just like this, add a tag. You can say, I want it to include the terms ATM, and I don't want it to include the term fee. So I only care about ATM transactions that are not associated with a fee. So I'm going to go ahead and add that. And show you transactions. So now what you can do is you can actually filter just by the tags that you created. So nice. Now we see Nike's tag everywhere. And actually, because I basically created a tag that mimics the ATM tag, that's why you're going to see pretty much overlap between Nike tag and the ATM tag. You can also do a couple other cool things, like you can say, I really only care about ATM fees, or excuse me, ATM transactions within a dollar amount of $500 to $1,000. So I can go ahead and update that. And now when I filter, I will only see transactions that are associated with ATM or my custom tag here that are within the range of $500 to $1,000. I can further customize it. We can get really crazy here, but I can further customize and say, I also only care about these transactions if they occur every 7 to 10 days, or excuse me, 7 to 10 days, not 20. So again, I'm going to go ahead, refresh, and you'll see a much more limited selection, right? These are 8 days apart. So again, this is like a lot of flexibility, but people have different use cases for how they want to use the tags. And so if some people care, I only care about recurring transactions, and you can do that, or I only care about certain types of transactions, and you can do that. Let me just pause for a second while I tee up revenue calculations.
However, one question that I do get quite often is how often should I be updating or customizing these tags?
It's a great question, and I get that question a lot too, because there's really no one answer for any client. I kind of always say it's going to be different for everybody, but one red flag for me is I can see if you've ever customized a tag. If I see that you've never ever created a custom tag or you've never ever gone in and made edits to our system tag, that's a red flag for me. That essentially to me might mean that you don't know that you can do this. So if you're never updating these tags, then I get worried that maybe you haven't seen this before. This is partly why we do these product pulses so people can be aware of the functionality, as this is a relatively new feature that we offer as a self-serve option. And on the other hand, if I see tons and tons and tons of custom tag edits every single month, that could tell me a couple things. It could tell me you're just getting set up with Ocrolus. You're really tuning this whole system to be to your liking, which is good. But if you're customizing every single day, that might mean you don't like our tags so much or they're not serving your purpose. I don't see anybody doing that, but that would probably be a red flag to me also. So ideally, I would imagine that a user that's really getting the most out of the system is probably customizing their tags once a month, maybe a couple times a quarter. You might go in, you might find a transaction that we missed and add it to our system tags, etc. Great question.
Yeah, that's great. And that actually dovetails into another question we just got, which is how do you know the input from customers on tags is accurate?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That is a really good question also. So one thing that we do as part of our R&D is we actually do the research to see does this particular input from a customer apply broadly enough? Are there enough examples we can find in the data where other customers would want that as well? So that is actually something that we take back with our data science team and we review. So at the very minimum, if you make a custom tag update or you update a system tag, that'll just apply to your org. It's not going out to everybody. You don't need to worry. But we review all of these edits so frequently so we can say, oh, that's a great idea. We take that feedback from our customers and we basically build it into a fly loop to help us make these tags better. But there is a lot of research that goes into it.
It looks like
Yeah.
those are all the questions we have right now, but we can circle back and answer more questions as you all have them.
Great. So I'm going to quickly jump into revenue formula customization, and then I want to leave plenty of time for questions and discussion at the end, so I'm not just rambling at you for half an hour. But again, here in your dashboard, we've created this dropdown called revenue formula. And this is a page that everybody has access to, no matter your user status. We want everybody to see what their revenue formula is tuned for their org so that it's clear to everybody. The only difference is you can only edit revenue in this page if you are a manager permission. The reason being, if you edit revenue in this page, which I'll talk more about in a second, if you do that, it impacts all of the books for your whole org, past, present, future. So it's a big deal. And so, with great power comes great responsibility. So we really like to lock this down to just manager level users. But again, you can extend those permissions to whoever you want. So let me just quickly scroll down to the bottom of this page. The bottom of this page shows the Ocrolus standard out of the box revenue formula. This is the revenue formula that everybody gets set up with when you start with Ocrolus. And I want to talk a bit about how the tags play in. So these will probably look familiar, but when we're thinking about revenue, and again, some mortgage and consumer customers think about this as income, but when we're thinking about revenue, particularly for a small business lender, what we're thinking about is what are all the deposits on the bank statement that we believe are revenue, and then we back out everything that doesn't belong into revenue. So you'll see that we start with all the credits or all the deposits, and then we start to back things out. So if I see a disbursement and from a provider that I know and I recognize as a fintech loan, I'm going to say that deposit is not revenue, that's a loan. Alternatively, I might see a deposit that is actually affiliated with a state tax or a state tax refund. I will say, you know what, I'm fairly confident that's not revenue. I'm going to back that out. So we do that to be really consistent. You can always say, I don't agree with Ocrolus, but we always start with deposits and what doesn't belong in revenue. Now, the way you are able to disagree with Ocrolus is you're able to deduct things from revenue yourself and customize the revenue formula for your organization. So you might say, I don't think equipment leases, those belong in revenue. And you might even say, I created a custom tag. I don't want Nike's custom tag, whatever belongs in there, to be part of revenue. And you can go ahead and do that, and it shows up automatically down here. You can always reset to the standard Ocrolus formula. But again, we really don't recommend touching this particular screen too often. You will most likely have the most engagement with it at the beginning of your journey with Ocrolus. What we see a lot of the time is customers start with us, they really want to fine tune their tags and their revenue formula to really make sense for their underwriting standards for their organization. And then once they're kind of set up and comfortable, they're probably not going to want to touch the revenue page again. But again, all these tags to keep it, just to kind of go back, whenever you're editing a tag, it will ultimately flow through to your revenue formula as it makes sense. If you find another funder that is an MCA that we didn't pick up and you put it in the MCA tag, it's no longer going to count towards revenue. So now your revenue number will be smaller, but your fintech MCA number will be bigger. So kind of intuitive, just basic kind of addition subtraction, but that's how we use this, and that's how you can basically use custom tags and revenue formula to use Ocrolus for all kinds of sort of complex underwriting decisions and credit decisions that you're making at your org.
We do have one question. Noticing that this was referred to as a small business product, is there
Mm.
an enterprise product as well, possibly something with the ability to leverage data from financials or tax returns?
Oh, it's a really wonderful point. So we have many different profiles of lenders that use this product. So when I say small business lending, that can include really small MCA funding. It can include SBA loans. It can be include small to medium to potentially even large. Plenty of our SMB lenders do large loans, 250K and up, using this data. But I think to your point, what I suspect you're referring to more commercial size loans, you may be getting data that's not just within a bank statement. So bank statement uh, transactions are really used for cash flow based underwriting, which is kind of the bread and butter of SMB lending. And it's certainly a part of commercial lending, but to your point, perhaps P&Ls or perhaps cash flow statements or balance sheets are also involved. We are actually looking into those. Those are not part of our repertoire just yet, but always on the roadmap. Always welcome the feedback for us to consider. But for right now, this system is geared towards cash flow based underwriting. Now, I do want to just put it out there that we have mortgage customers, we have consumer customers, and we support over 1,500 document types. So I don't want you to come away from this thinking we only support bank statements. We support many, many, many types of documents, but financial statements are one we haven't covered just yet. And part of that, before I ramble on too much at you, is because there is so much variance in financial statements. This gives me some nightmares for when I was an investor in my early days, like poring through financial statements. A lot of PTSD, but there is a lot of variance and a lot of interpretation, and a lot of sort of subjectivity according to footnotes and the way that the data is prepared. And so we like to do bank statement analysis for SMB lending specifically because the data is not, it doesn't lie in a bank statement. It's accurate, versus financial statements can have an element of garbage in, garbage out because there's subjectivity in the preparation, but bank statements don't lie.
Excellent. And then we have one additional question. The difference between, or what is the difference between excluding a transaction from the revenue versus excluding a whole tag from the revenue?
Oh, I'm so glad you brought this up because I would have almost forgotten to talk about this. So, if you are back in our nice transactions page for a particular book, you might say, I noticed this particular transaction, this Square Inc. Cash App ID, this particular transaction, I want this to be in revenue, and Ocrolus didn't put this in revenue. And I can just go ahead and toggle an individual transaction and say, I want that to be in revenue. I can untoggle it. I have perfect flexibility to dynamically select any individual transaction. It's really important to note if you toggle any one transaction, it will not impact all transactions with this tag for the rest of your book or for the rest of your org. It's just this one. So that's kind of the difference between toggling an individual transaction and including it or excluding it from revenue versus going into your tag and making sweeping changes to all transactions that fall within a particular tag. I hope that was helpful.
Excellent. It looks like that's all of our questions so far. If you have any questions, feel free to submit those through the Q&A field. We got one more. Is there a way to export the high-level analytics from the bank accounts within a book to a PDF? For example, the beginning, ending, average balances, deposits, withdrawals, revenue versus expense. This person has only found the XLS, CSV, JSON, PNG.
Yes, it's a really I'm glad you brought this up. I've been thinking about this today. If you want to capture lender analytics and download it from the dashboard, it is just available in an Excel. It's been asked before why we don't offer this in PDF. We did previously offer it in an old version of our dashboard, and really not enough people asked for it in this version of the dashboard. So if this is something people really, really want, we'd love to consider it and maybe think about it as a future roadmap item. But today, it's just an Excel download. You could convert it to a PDF potentially afterward if you wanted on your side, but we don't offer that. But really, I'd actually just love to follow up with you and understand the use case a little bit better, because maybe that's something a lot more customers want and we just, don't know about it. And, we want to create things that you use and you love.
Excellent. It looks like that is all of our questions for today.
I hope I haven't scared anyone off from asking more questions, but I know it's lunch hour, at least on the East Coast. And so if you want to have a follow-up conversation, I'd love to talk to clients and I'd love to dig in more with you and understand your use case or understand your feedback if there's something that you're not getting out of our custom tags, system tags, analytics that you wish you were. Like, I live for that feedback. So, please reach out and get in touch and I'd love to chat.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. We will send a follow-up email with a recording. And as Nike said, if you have any questions or feedback, don't hesitate to reach out to us directly. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend. Bye.